Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Findaway Productions with your co-hosts, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What is happening, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. Coach, I was just thinking, we just kind of, it's weird, the intro music and all that we play now, it's been there a while, like 3 years or something. And I just remember making that at random, however long ago that was. And it's become a thing. I like it now. It's just,
That's good. That's good. We almost need walk-up music. Like I've always thought it'd be cool whenever you enter a room, you could pick the song that kind of played. Like baseball players, the one thing I think they do really, really well, I think it's super cool. You come up to bat and they play whatever that song is that represents you. I think we should do that in our podcast world. Is you have a song you pick and I have a song I pick, and that's what we play before we come on.
There we go. I'll get it. I'll make that happen for next season. So season 7 is coming to a close today. Season 8 next week, we'll get it started. So maybe we'll have our walk-up music by then. You just got to let me know what's going on.
What genre would you go with? You have to pick a walk-up song.
Probably, I don't know. Dad raised me right on like the classic rock. So it's somewhere between like the hair bands and somewhere in grunge 90s. I don't know. It'd have to be in that era probably.
I would either do Creed, or my wife actually walked down the aisle to Metallica. So maybe that'd be a good little walk-up song, a little Metallica. Enter Sandman might be a good one.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. There we go. Well, maybe we'll have walk-up music next time. Welcome, guys. Glad you guys are jumping on early this morning to listen to us talk a little bit of balls. We are closing out season 7 here. We're doing an episode that we've done before, and maybe even more than once. And so as I was kind of typing up the notes here, we type a little sheet that we read and keep our minds, somewhat focused. I was thinking how much maturity I have gained from the last time we did this episode about mistakes, because last time I'm pretty sure I was still blaming other people for all of my coaching follies. And it took several years in some of those areas to really understand that it was me, and the extreme ownership lifestyle had to kind of take over. But so it's going to be different. I'm gonna have to go back and find the other one and listen to my complaining self and the lack of awareness and comparing it to today. But we are going to talk about some coaching mistakes that we're leaving behind, and how it makes our teams and our professional lives and our personal lives better, because more and more I'm leaning into that, like especially as all these NFL coaches come out and talk about being 30 minutes with their kids and a week and all that crap. Like, man, what a weird world that they're trying to make okay. So anyway, it's gonna be a good one to talk about some mistakes and do some self-reflection. Before we get started though, Kenny, let's hear the quote of the week.
Sure. On that note, on different things, I've got Team Themes volumes 1 through 6. So we're going to do a quote real quickly from Team Themes volume 6. Also, if you would like the episode, got a lot of books in this world. As I've gotten older, and Daniel will find as he gets older, you start to have more and more regrets. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how life goes. So the most recent one is the 0-10 to 10-0 book. So I want to pitch that now. As we're talking through this episode, a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are reflected in that one. I've also got a 10 hard lessons learned. So both those books would be really good if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Now, so from Team Themes Volume 6, we're going to give a little love to Lou Holtz. RIP to Lou Holtz, one of my favorite coaches. I read his book and I really respect the man. Was a great coach. So his quote says, "The final stretch is where character is revealed. Anybody can compete when they feel good. Finishers compete when it hurts," which obviously he's talking about athletes. Today, we're going to kind of apply that to coaches, because if you're talking about things that you did wrong and you wish you could do better, or mistakes that you've made, you've probably been in some bad places. So a lot of times you look back at your younger self and, you wish you had done different things. However, you wouldn't be where you were today without some of those things having happened. And so, for me, I'm going to try to talk from a place of, hey, I wish I might have known some things back then that were different.
Yeah.
But the only reason I know them now is because I went through them. And so if you're a guy who some of this stuff steps on your toes, don't worry. It's probably stepping on everybody's toes, and mine included. And I, like Daniel, I'm going to listen to this episode 5 years from now and probably be like, man, I've come a long way since then.
Yes.
And that's kind of the goal of our podcast, of anything we're doing, is to just help guys along the way.
Yeah, that is a big part of the podcast. Just going back and listening and being able to see where we've come along and others are as well. I got to take, one final jab at Lou Holtz. He was a great coach, and we in Oklahoma will never forget that he tried to steal our "Play Like a Champion Today" sign. So, Coach, rest easy, man. We got it from here. Don't be taking that sign up there to heaven, though. Okay, that's ours. We got to keep that in Soonerland. But
Most people don't know Lou Holtz, Arkansas guy now. So we're gonna claim him a little bit. I know Notre Dame's where he gained his notoriety, but
Right.
Arkansas guy for quite a bit.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, let's talk to our sponsors real quick. Ace Sports. If you haven't gone to acesports.com or emailed mark.bridges@acesports.com, you're just really kind of missing out. You're cutting your own chances here to do some great fundraising, get some great products around your stadium, in your arenas, whatever sport it is you coach. I'm sure most people listening are football coaches, but jump over to acesports.com, talk to Mark, let him come in and see your vision, help get your admin on board, and really just show you where the finances are in your community. The last year or so, they put up some boards in some pretty small schools that thought, hey, we don't have a chance to do that. And he comes in and proves them wrong. So holler at it, Mark. Also, Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Doug has got the 2.0 thing going. If you guys haven't talked to him either, you need to. Okay. The analytics side, like I'm big into analysis and analytics and data. I think it paints a picture that you may miss, especially if you're a coach that either doesn't know what to look for, or you're on a staff that's pretty young and hasn't got it figured out. What do you watch film for? What are we really looking for? Data can help you at least see what's important. But he's going into, like, this year, he's going to do some stuff with upcoming games instead of being live in game only. Still get that portion, but you can kind of put your upcoming opponent's data into his program and kind of see, it'll show you some reports about what they look like. In fact, he's taking my big play call sheet for defense and how we break down offense, and he's trying to automate my full call sheet, which is about 2.5 hours of work on me that the computer's just going to do it. So I am stoked. So you can get my play call sheet and get whatever you want over it from Doug at Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Last but not least, Blended Threads LLC. If you're trying to get your game day swag up, if you're trying to give out swag bags to people, if you want to sell it to your booster club, put it in your, it seems like everybody now is selling preferred seating or season tickets. You can give those people a shirt, a polo, whatever it is. You can get that stuff made through Morgan over at Morgan@blendedthreadsllc.com is her email. Reach out to her. Let her know what you're trying to do. Like, I'm trying to set up a pro shop. Okay, so I want to work with Morgan to set up a pro shop. So it'll be like kind of a drop shipping. They order online. She makes it and sends it to them. I don't touch anything, but the finances are there. So holler at Morgan and just kind of let her know what you're looking for, and let her help you set that up today. Blended Threads LLC out of Central Oklahoma, the Jones area. She knows how to make state championship hats because they just won that this year, and she had to make them all. So. All right, let's jump into it, Kenny. Part one, here's the hard part, right? The kind of the tearing the mask off of it real quick. So what are some coaching mistakes that you've left behind?
Yeah, man, I've written books about this, so I don't have to pretend to hide them or whatever, because I guess you get old enough, you just don't care, and you can admit things. And it's hard to do that when you're in the middle of it, but we've had some decent years, which has made it easy. So I cover a lot of these in that 0-10 to 10-0 book, but there's just a few that I was able to jot down as we were talking this morning about what we're going to talk about. So here's a few things that I think I've gotten better at. Not perfect, but I've kind of started to realize this is not right. Number one, Daniel's already kind of alluded to it. I used to always think that time equaled wins. You're raised that way. I was raised that way. My dad and mom raised me right. I think they taught me that hard work is what we're expected to do, and if you work hard, usually things are going to work out for you. And so we try to take that and we apply it into athletics, and there's parts of that are true. So I don't want coaches to listen to this and say, well, Coach Simpson said you don't have to work hard. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying things like, this is a dangerous place to be. I felt like if I was a good person, I went to church and I did all the good things and I worked really hard, that God would bless me, which is true. That stuff is true. But I don't think that equates to winning on the field. And I think that's where we kind of get our lines crossed a little bit of, if I work really hard and I'm a good person, I'm going to be blessed, which means I'm going to win championships. That's not really how it works. There's a lot more
If
to
only,
it. And
right?
yeah, I know. And it's a dangerous thought process because you see a guy who wins it, he's a good person. You go, well, if I'm a good person, then I'm going to win too. And there's a lot more to it. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't be a good person or you shouldn't work hard. Far from it. You should do those things. But if you're only doing those things to win, not going to really happen. And so I used to think time in the office equated wins. Like the more time we spent in the office, the more I put on our coaches, the more I put on our kids, the better we were going to be. And then I came across an 0-10 season where I worked harder than I've ever worked my entire life. And our kids worked harder than I think I've had a group ever work in their entire life. And we still went 0-10. And I went, something's wrong with this model. Like something is wrong here. Maybe I'm a bad person. Maybe I didn't work hard enough. And you step back from the situation and you go, okay, no, we just weren't working very efficiently. Like I was still a problem. I was not, we were just working to work, like putting in hours because we didn't really know where we were going. And we didn't step back and set a goal of where we needed to get. We had a lot of other problems, but hard work was not one of those. So it took me a long time to realize you need to work hard. I think God has called us to give the best we can to the people we're serving, which is our kids and our coaches. That being said, you don't need to think you need to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. Dana already alluded to it. Miss out on your kids, miss out on your family, miss out on whatever. And that's going to help you win games. It's not. Being efficient with your time, being organized with your time, having a clear goal with your time, understanding how to maximize your talent, those things help you win, not simply the hours. Yeah. So that was the first big mistake that I had to kind of learn. And I'll give a plug to him every time I get a chance. I think Tony Holler, I don't agree with 1,000% of what he says, but I agree with 999%. And I agree with a lot of it. He has a lot of very good stuff on being efficient. And I think we need to listen to that kind of stuff. Number two, thinking that winning or focusing on winning at all costs was the only goal. As I've gotten older, wins matter. I mean, guys, I'm not going to lie to you. You got to win to keep your job most of the time, and if you win a lot, it does make things more fun, like way more fun. But winning is not the ultimate goal of coaching young men at the high school level, I don't think. Now, if you're listening to this and you coach college, they're getting paid now, so they're pretty much professionals. You're in a different world than we're in.
Yep.
Like you're there to win. It's a professional relationship. I got into coaching high school kids so that I could mentor young men and help them become better men as they got farther along. But somewhere along the lines, in the heat of the battle, we lose sight of that. And we lose sight of what we're trying to do. And so as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at being more patient with them and trying to bring them along and not thinking that, hey, we won, we were successful. We didn't win, we weren't successful. There's been a lot of times the year we went 10-0, there were still issues I was dealing with in character every game. There were times we really didn't celebrate the win very much because I was worried about something that character was being affected. And then there's been times, this year, our last loss of the season, really good high school, Elkins High School, and it won a state championship. I was super proud of our kids. I thought our kids played their guts out. I thought we played as hard as we could play. I wish I could have done some things better as a coach, but I was as proud of our kids as ever after a loss because I thought they did everything that was in their power to give themselves a chance. And I think that was, to me, rewarding that, hey, these kids have bought in and they sacrificed for each other all night long. It was an awesome scene, even though we didn't win. So I think that's a big thing for us is we don't look at wins and losses. We focus on the process, like what Nick Saban calls it, the process. We call it like, are we becoming better? Are we getting better as a person? Are we getting better as a player? Are we getting better as a student? If we are, then we're doing our job. Number 3 for me, trying to look for new trends and do things to be cool. You know, when I was a young coach, I liked doing all the shifts and the RPOs and all the fun stuff, defensively, blitz, all that kind of stuff. But we didn't really know why we were doing it. We kind of found it. It was successful for this team. So we just said, well, it's going to be successful to us too. If it was good for them, it's going to be good for us. That's not really how that stuff works. So we now use the tools. We have a lot of tools at our disposal that we use. But we only use them for a purpose. I talk to a lot of clinics. I talk about how we shift and we trade and we have all these formations. If I don't need them to beat you, I'm not going to use them. Like that's I think when the maturity has come for me is you don't just do things to show off what you can do. You do things to give yourself a chance to win. And if you don't need to do those things, don't. I've seen lots of coaches that would rather look good and lose than look boring and win. And I don't want to be that guy. I was that guy younger. I don't want to be that guy now. The biggest compliment I got was about 4 years ago. Actually, no, I'm sorry. 2 years ago, we won a game to win our conference championship. One of my friends, Sterling Stowers, told me this is Highland, great coach, great young mind, I think. Walked across the field, said, Coach, great job executing. We knew what you were going to do. You just executed so well. And I said, that's the best compliment I can get.
For sure.
Because we were just doing simple things and doing them well. He knew it was coming. His kids knew it was coming, and they couldn't stop it. You know, and I think I think he's a great young mind. I say that as a compliment to him. I thought he did a great job with those kids. But I think that was a big step forward for us, was now that we are trying to just do what's right. The last thing I put on here is, you know, a lot of times when you become a head coach, you feel the weight. There's like a weight that gets put on you. Daniel, if you haven't felt it yet, it's coming. It's this weight that never leaves. Like nobody walks into the math teacher and says, your math students were vaping in the parking lot. They don't walk into the math teacher and say, your math students were cussing at the grocery store, or your math students were acting a fool at football practice. Nobody says that. They come to you because that's the weight of the job you inherited. Your football coaches fill in the blank, or your football players or coaches fill in the blank, either one. You feel that weight. So because I had that weight on me, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was probably some, 6-foot dictator trying to just put rules on everything and make everything go exactly how it needed to go. And that's a real good way to paint yourself into a corner, where you give a lot of different rules and a lot of regulations and you really can't enforce them. And then it becomes a problem because you can't enforce the rule and you can't do this. And so I've started learning as I've gotten older, less is definitely more when it comes to rules. We have what we call the triangle of dumbness at South. I gave our kids a speech yesterday. It's a triangle of dumbness. So it's kind of the pyramid really of dumbness. Rule number 1 is don't do anything dumb. Now our kids can repeat this. Rule number 2 is if you break rule number 1, for the love of everything good, please don't record it or do it on campus. So that's rule 1. And rule 2 is don't record it or do it on campus. Rule 3 is if you break rules 1 and 2, don't post it, because that's what these kids have got to learn. And then they added a rule 3B that we got from an old coach. Don't add to the population or take away from the population.
That's right.
If you kind of follow those 3 rules in our program, I can basically put every issue I got to deal with there, and I can deal with that issue individually. Because here's another reality coaches got to face. My son, I think, is kind of blessed. He's got 2 parents. He's got an awesome mom who's going to wake him up and make him come on time. She's going to make sure he's had 3 meals a day. She's going to make sure he's got whatever. And in the other corner, I've got a guy who's a dad to a 2-year-old who's paying the bills, who's dealing with whatever. Those 2 are not equal.
No.
And if I treat them as equal, we're going to have lots of problems. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have a standard. That doesn't mean we don't want our kids to improve to the standard. But if you're asking those 2 situations to be equal, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So if you kind of have these rules of don't do anything dumb, don't do this, now I can individually deal with people. And wherever their situation is, I can find out the background and I can help work them through it. What you'll be criticized on, because I'm criticized all the time, is I'm not fair. Well, neither is life.
Neither is
And
life.
as a
That's
football
right.
coach, you're just supposed to do the best you can for your program and for your kids. And you pray that God helps you through those hard situations. So those are the things I think I've learned the most. I could list more. And I detail a lot of those in that 0-10 to 10-0 book too.
I think people have a misconstrued up. I don't know what word I'm looking for. They think that fair is equal and equal is fair, and those they aren't the same, right? You just mentioned a very easy case. Kids are in different places in life, so yeah, be fair and consistent. I don't know about equal. There's no such thing. All right, so problems that I have already solved. Like I said, I've only been at this. Well, I'm going on year 7, Kenny. I finally have. I've gotten into the second half of my first decade here, so believing that X's and O's solve every problem is probably the first one I had to get rid of, because as a coach, that's what you learn first, right? As an assistant coach. In fact, I would say that may be all you're given by people in leadership positions is, hey, I'm going to give you these X's and O's because this is what matters to me right now. You're an assistant coach. I need you to solve problems on game night. Because if it's a parent problem, if it's a kid's behavior problem, if it's a leadership problem, I'm supposed to handle that as a head coach. So I don't even want you to have those tools yet, because you might try to use them and screw something up. So that's what we're kind of ingrained with early, is like, here's the X's and O's, here's the problems you're trying to solve. That doesn't make, I mean, if you start looking at the coaching carousel, there's some guys that take jobs and you're like, man, who would ever take that job? Most of those people are thinking in X's and O's. There's no talent. They're not going to go out and win state championship. Not going to do this. Some of them have failed to see, like, it's okay to look at those jobs and see, how can I fix that community? How can I help? Not even fix it, but put it in a better place, right? So believing X's and O's can solve every problem. I'm sure that this is still something I'm going to struggle with the rest of my career, because I work with 2 guys who sell X's and O's online for their side hustles. Well, for Joe, it's his main career, and I consult for coaches, so I help coaches with their X's and O's. So I'm going to continuously lean back into that, but I had to learn pretty quickly that it doesn't solve all the problems. Another was assuming that within X's and O's and all the rest of it, assuming that I have all the answers and can't learn from those around me. And, I kind of talked about my second job that didn't go so well, and it took me a couple of years to quit being mad at them and to put the blame back on myself and understand that I wasn't scot-free out of there, just free and clear, and made no mistakes. 100% was the problem. If I'd have gone up, not given up 46 points a game as a defensive coordinator, I probably would have had a job, regardless of all the other stuff that was going on. So I remember, and it kind of leads to my last one here. Being in charge means you can't ask for help. That time and other times, I've been in charge of a militarily a lot, especially when you're the guy in charge. Sometimes it's hard to look around to the people around you and be like, hey, help me here, because you're supposed to look like the guy in charge. You're supposed to look like the guy that has all the answers. And we kind of you talk about that weight. I think that weight is for all coordinators, everything. Goes back to remember the Titans, right? Defense coordinator is like, all right, Herman Boone, I'm getting my tail whipped over here. It's time for some help. In the state championship game, like, it took him all season to reach out and say, hey, dude, help me out here. I think we fall into that a lot, because if you ask for help, you may look a little weak, right? You may not look like you know what's going on. So I'm sure there's a ton of other coaching mistakes I left behind. Luckily, I got in with some good mentors early, and so I skipped a lot of hiring. All your friends was one I saw other people make. I'll just fill up your football staff with your friends, because it's just going to be the hangout spot for you when you're away from your family. It might as well be with your friends. But sometimes you need guys that just know ball. Sometimes you just need to get the old guy who's just looking for his retirement gig, because he can help you with the stupid situations, because he's seen them all, 10 times. So I learned that pretty early on from my mentors, and a ton more. But we could kind of be here all day talking about mistakes. So let's go ahead and jump on to part 2 here, Coach. And why is it so hard for coaches to not be able to see their own mistakes, or to see their own mistakes, I guess?
Yeah, I think when you're a head coach, there's several reasons why any coach has a hard time, any person has a hard time seeing their own mistakes. That's natural. Like it's a normal thing that most people might be blind to their own flaws, especially people that are in leadership positions, because generally those people are, they're asked to be confident. They're naturally going to be confident people. They're naturally going to be people that are willing to do things that are uncomfortable. So because of that, that type of personality usually is the kind that thinks they're right all the time. At least I am. Like that's a problem I've struggled with, and I pass on to my children. Is that you always think you're right, because I've had that since I was 12. My mom told me, I was probably 8 years old, arguing with her about whatever, and I'm 8. So a lot of us have that type of personality in this world.
Yeah.
Because we have that kind of confidence. And so it's not unique to just coaches, but any leader, is going to have these issues. So for us, I think it's hard for us to find somebody you can really trust, like a confidant, like somebody you can go to and they're going to call you out when things aren't doing well. Because if you're the head coach, there's just not a lot of many people in your bubble. And Daniel, you're going to see this if you haven't already figured it out. Like when you're the assistant coach, your bubble's kind of big. You other coaches, head coach, people you can talk to, as you kind of work to a head coach, that bubble kind of shrinks of people that you really let in. And it can be a very lonely type position. And so usually you're not really going to find somebody on your own staff you can go to share concerns or issues with your staff. Now,
Right.
maybe you get lucky and you got an older coach on your staff that you can do that. I have that. I'm lucky. But usually you don't. Usually that's not available. So you got to go outside your own staff. You don't really probably want to do it with an administrator because, they're technically your boss. So you probably need to leave that alone. So you're like, okay, well, now where do I go? Other head coaches don't have a whole lot of time. They're dealing with their own problems. They don't really have time for your problems. So then well, now where do I go? Who would understand the world I'm in? There just aren't a lot of people in that world. Maybe your spouse is that person. Maybe you're lucky you've got one like I've got that is a good one for me, but maybe you don't. So you've got to find, who do I go to? Maybe it's your parent. Maybe you're lucky and your dad's still around or whoever's still around. But rarely do we have like a person we can go to and share issues we're seeing, and they can be honest back with us. So you got to try to find that person. Daniel calls him a mentor. That'd be fine. Anyone in that world that can help you when you see some different things. Sometimes it's hard to be honest with yourself. Like it's hard to just sit there and be honest with what's going on, because either you're going to be super critical to yourself or you're going to be the other way. It's hard to get like a real view of your situation. Either everything's going to be negative. We can't win, our facilities suck, our admin's terrible, whatever. It's all going to be negative. Or it's going to be the other, where you're still seeing the road. Well, I think we could still make the playoffs, and you just went 0-10. So you got to kind of find reality world of what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, and that can be hard to evaluate when you're in the middle of it. So you're trying to find somebody from the outside that can kind of help you. Hey, coach, not everything you did was wrong just because you went 0-10. Or I know you're 10-0 right now, but you got some issues you got to deal with.
Yeah.
Like you got to kind of find that mindset somehow. Usually a person can kind of help with that. Number 3 for me was it can be really easy to make excuses. Like we live in a world of excuses. Everything is not our fault. It's somebody else's fault. And you can pass the buck up the chain or you can pass the buck down the chain. If we had a quarterback, we'd win a bunch of games. If I had the talent this team had, I'd win a bunch. If we had the budget this other team had, man, look at the facilities that team's got. Or look at all the coaches that team has. Or and it's really easy to look at all the resources other people have and say, we don't have that, we can't compete, because that's a lot easier to say than here's what I have and we expect our kids to do X, Y, or Z. So it's really easy to find excuses. And I promise you they're around every corner. And the year we went 0-10, I've got a little picture that I put in the book. I put it in my gun tee presentations too. The guy's trapped on a desert island and he spells out help with these logs. And then the next picture is the other guy on the same desert island who isn't spelling out help. He's using those logs to build a boat. I think sometimes as coaches, it's a lot easier just to complain and vent and move on to something else, expect it to be easy than it is to actually work through it. And so excuses are really, really easy for everybody. Number 4, our goal is usually to critique other people, and if we fail, it's because they didn't do their job. Like I can't catch the ball for him. I can't throw the ball for him. I can't block for him. I can tackle. If I could go out there and do it, we would win. But these guys can't do it. And so it's easy to, they can't and he can't. And instead of, I've got to get them better. How do I teach them more? When you start taking on that mindset of, I'm responsible for, well, if you can't throw it and catch it, why'd you call a pass play? Or if we can't tackle, well, what's your practice schedule look like? Are you working tackling? What drills are you working? Are we getting better? So instead of blaming, you evaluate, why are they not good at what they're doing? What can I do to improve it? And I think that's when you change your mindset there, it helps. And let's be honest, talent matters. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that talent doesn't matter. Of course it does. But are you maximizing your talent? The guy I just lost to be a head coach used to say, are you bumping your head on the ceiling of your talent? I love that statement. Like, are you maximizing every ounce of what you've got with every kid? If you are, you're doing a great job coaching. But if you're not, that kind of falls on you. Yeah. And then the last one I've got on here is, kind of mentioned it early, but you got to be confident in this world. Like, you have to be confident. You cannot second guess yourself constantly, or you're never going to make it as a coach. There's plenty of other people that are going to second guess everything you do. You have to have a confidence. Now, you got to have a reality check, but you've got to be confident. And that flies in the face a lot of times with humble. How are you confident and humble? And it's really hard to find that balance, because what usually happens for most coaches, it did for me, was you go confidence and cockiness. Yes. Those two things go really well together. And I promise you, I've flirted with that line probably more than I should have. I probably still do if you ask my wife. But confidence and cockiness, not going to help you win games. You got to swing it back to confidence with a little bit of humility kind of mixed in.
Yeah, that's a line that I think a lot of us struggle with too, is like, how do you ride that line between confident and cockiness? And that's kind of getting to what I'm talking about here. And we're in a type A personality ran industry. I mean, if there's a guy that's in football coaching that isn't type A, I would like to shake his hand and ask him, how do you even exist here? Because that's what this is, right? It's just a bunch of testosterone fueled guys that all think they're right. And sometimes that does lead to cockiness, right? And you get a little bit of that swagger in your step, and you do some things right, and somebody's got to knock you off that pedestal sometimes. But being in that type A ran profession, I think sometimes we get stuck in Kenny, this world where if you show that you don't know, you show a weakness, it can hurt your career. And it's how we feel on the inside. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it's definitely a place where I feel like we tiptoe around that a lot. With, you talked about it, find a confidant, find somebody who's not going to blast this to everyone else. Maybe I don't know my X's and O's. Maybe I don't know. 1 second, buddy. Maybe I don't know, how to handle this parent, or, what do I do if my kid gets caught with, something at school he's not supposed to have, or what? There's all these things that can go wrong. And it's a bunch of kids whose brains aren't developed that we're trying to control. It's herding cats, man. We're herding cats as a profession, and we're supposed to act like we confidently know how to do that. So I think it does open us up to not being able to see those mistakes, because you start hiding them, or not necessarily hiding them, but just, you talk about the excuse, right? I mean, I guess it could be an excuse to say, hey, we're herding cats. I don't know. It just depends on how far you want to take that. But it is a job that isn't super easy, and we're trying to simplify and not have rules and all this stuff, right? Because we want the world to be easier for us. Anyway, I think if you show that weakness, it can definitely hurt your career. I think we are just blinded by the world that, I mean, I don't know that it's ego sometimes as much as it's just there's a lot going on, Kenny. From you've got family at home, you've got, for us, the internet side of this business where we're trying to go out and ensure that our voice is heard and it reaches a certain, as many people as we can get it to reach. We've got to take care of our own staff and our own kids and our own programs. My son's gonna flip out of the chair. Everyone say hi to Liam. Hi, Lily. He's about to go to daycare, but this is spring break in Oklahoma, by the way. I know you Arkansas guys are next week. But you can kind of be blinded by the fact there's so much going on. And so it's hard to find where you have become a failure because I'm being successful maybe in 8 out of 10 things, right? That can get into the X's and O's on Friday nights. That can get into how you're leading your program, how you're handling things at home or in the building. But often, you can, one or two things can slip through the cracks and you may not see it immediately. So I think that's another place where coaches may not see their own mistakes because they're good at almost everything. And then there's those things that are just, kind of slipping through the cracks. So let's jump in the last part here, Kenny. How do we find a healthy way to improve ourselves?
Well, we've hit on a few of these already, so I'll kind of quickly hit those. But I think you got to find a mentor or a confidant or somebody you can trust to bounce ideas back and forth with. And that can be with the internet now. I mean, there are ways to connect with people across the world, so that's good. But you need somebody who's probably relatively local, who kind of knows really what's going on with your school. Preferably, in my opinion, somebody older with more experience, if that's an option. I think number two, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself and your family. So like, it's not cool to get 4 hours of sleep. Like it's not good or healthy. It's not going to help you be a better coach. Whatever your minimum is, I think we all have differences. I like to sleep. So for me, I need to get about 7 to 8 hours to be, I can get by on 5 or 6, but I need about 7 or 8 to really be fresh, ready to go. I got to spend time doing things I like. Like we travel a bunch. I know I do a lot of clinics and people go, Coach, how do you do all these clinics? Well, I get to take my family on these. My son got to see Boston. My wife got to go to San Diego. We find ways to spend time with people that we care about because that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy traveling and I enjoy being with my family. Maybe you enjoy fishing or you enjoy hunting or you enjoy reading or you enjoy whatever that might be. You got to carve out a little bit of time for that. I think you got to carve out time for your family for sure, especially if you're married and have kids. I mean, you owe them that. But you also need to carve out time for things that you enjoy. For me, obviously, that's writing books because apparently that's what I do. So I got to carve out time where I can write books and I can do different things that I enjoy doing. That way you don't burn out. Like you don't burn out of coaching football and it becomes something you regret. Nobody wants that. You got to learn how to work. You got to learn from other people. You got to work to learn from other people, regardless of how old you are. One of the neat story, I'm going to be in Tampa doing a clinic this weekend, and I got reached out to by Denny Crehan. If you don't know who he is, he's like a godfather of the wing tee. So when I heard his name, he said, Coach, I would like to come to your clinic and learn a little bit. And I went, I appreciate you wanting to come, but I'm going to make you speak if you come because I want to learn from you.
That's right.
This guy has probably forgot more football than I will know, and he's wanting to come learn. And I think that speaks to where I want to be as a coach. I hope when I'm in my 70s and 60s, I'm going to clinics and I'm learning from these younger guys and constantly getting better. And with today's technology, it could be a podcast like you're listening to right now. It could be reading a book. It could be going to a clinic. But we've got to constantly be willing to learn from others. And that can include our own assistant coaches. Like have them clinic the staff. Have them clinic you on what they've learned. We were hiring a guy. I'm super excited about him. He's been blowing my phone up, and I love it because he's been digging into our offense and digging into this. What, Coach, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about this? Some of the stuff, we may not be able to do. but he's got some really good ideas. And I'm like, man, that I think that would look really good with what we're already doing, and that would work really well. And do some more research on that, and then get back with me, and then you tell me how to do that, and then if that works, we'll put it in. I think that's kind of, and I'm traveling the country talking about offense, but I'm asking this guy coming in, hey, you bring me some stuff that you think will work. Let's work together and let's put something together. So there's a lot of people you can learn from. And I think you need to constantly be continuing to learn.
Yeah, I love it. Being a lifelong learner has definitely eliminated. It has minimized my need to identify all the common things because I'm listening to all these other people talk about the little things, where they missed a step, where they improved themselves. In fact, Joe and I, we have our level up part of that podcast because it's just like, what did you do this week? And that's a weekly focus. What did you do this week to be better? And sometimes it's just simply I took a step back this week and just hung out with my friends or my family. And sometimes it's, hey, I read this, I read War and Peace from cover to cover, whatever. And so we constantly have that on the mind. I think a big part of finding a healthy way to improve ourselves is just thinking through problems you haven't faced yet. And that's where podcasting has helped me so much. Whether I'm recording with you or recording with Joe or jumping on Mike D, the referee, or any of the other shows that I jump on and just kind of get in and learn from people. But it's that exchanging of ideas. Heck, we recorded Sunday, so some of you guys were on live when we did this 2 whole days ago. But I told you, hey, I stole stuff from you the first time I met you, Kenny, and that was how to script out plays, right? You don't script a whole drive, you script a few plays, and then you run away with it. But those are just things that I hadn't even faced yet. I had no need to face that yet, but I was already taking ideas. So I've just made it a habit to do that. And the podcast makes it pretty easy to kind of do that because we're talking to different minds all the time. Consistently getting feedback from the staff, I think that's a super healthy way, but you have to build that culture. We just talked earlier, it's type A mentality world. Guys don't necessarily want to hear, they want to give you feedback. I promise you, everybody around you wants to tell you where you're screwing up. They may not want to pat you on the back, and they may not want to hear their own flaws, right? So you got to build that culture. My wife is a physical therapist, and she worked for a company a while back that did some things right. And one of the things I liked about their company is they had an Army would call it an AAR, an after action review. You go through an event. It doesn't matter if you walk to the schoolhouse from your car or if you coached a football game. You can AAR anything. But they would, have a weekend or whatever, and they just have a phone call. And it was basically, we came to your clinic. We observed you doing your work. Here's where we think you succeeded. Here's where we think you need to improve. But what I really liked about it is during the improvement part, all that the person being evaluated could say was thank you. That's it. And that was the rule. All you can say is thank you. It didn't matter if you agreed, disagreed, because you're going to make the changes or you aren't. You're not, having an argument in this phone call or this evaluation is not going to change. So they build the culture of thank you. Thank you for evaluating me, whether I agree or disagree. And I think that's really neat. We have to learn that. And militarily, I had to learn that, right? You sit in those and you get picked apart. You start defending yourself, man. When someone starts picking out your flaws, you put the armor on. Where's my sword? We're going to battle. You want to tell me that I did something wrong? So I had to learn, and as a lot of the leaders around me had to learn, like sometimes you just say thank you, move on, make the changes that are necessary. But those end of season evals, let your coaches pick you apart. Let them be honest, because if you start that culture and give it guidelines, I don't need you AARing me on Friday night in the middle of a game. Hey, coach, that call sucked. Yeah, okay. If we went for negative, okay, let's solve it. Why did that call suck? But at the end of the season or on Saturdays, whatever it is that your culture needs, let people evaluate you. But also reach up to your supervisors. Reach out to other peers. You kind of talk. Other head coaches ain't got time during the season, but afterwards you may go sit and talk with someone. I hope Bill Blankenship is available after my first season head coaching, because I want to sit in his office and just talk through all the stuff I'm going to face, right? And get the view from, he's at 10,000 feet at this. I'm barely getting off the ground. So, and other head coaches too that are in my circle. I hope that I can go pick on them. And the last one here is you just can't be afraid to hear the hard truths. Sometimes in life, we're going to make those mistakes. Having a friend of mine tell me finally, Hey, Daniel, maybe that year 2 thing was on you. It doesn't matter the quality of person that you were working with. Maybe it was on you, and maybe it was a good thing that you got out of there, right? Stuff happens, man, but you're going to have to hear that hard truth eventually. Sometimes it's from yourself. You got to admit to yourself you don't know what you thought you did. I'm not as smart at this as I thought. I don't have all the answers of kind of all the other stuff we've hit in this podcast. Sometimes you just can't be afraid to hear the hard truths, whether that is your spouse, your confidant, your mentor, your coaching staff, your boss. Sometimes it's your kids. I still remember Beckett telling me at 4 years old, Daddy, I wish you'd never became a football coach. Like, that was a hard truth I needed to hear. I was doing a lot. I was gone a lot, and I had to make some changes with my time. And so you got to hear those hard truths and be okay with it. Just be ready for them. So. All right, I think we've pushed the time. We'll cover that other section here another time. Let's jump into our sponsor ads here. So one last time, go over to asports.com, talk to Mark Bridges, mark.bridges@asports.com. Email him, share your vision, let him come build it out with your admin and with your staff and the people around your building. Winning Edge Performance Analytics, jump over and talk to Doug. Doug is ready to get you guys in right now. Like I said, he's got the 2.0 coming out. He wants to help you pre-plan for an opponent. He's working on a bunch of different methods to get call sheets in your hand automated with your huddle data. So that, I can tell you, mine is going to be down and distance by personnel, favorite run types or run plays and pass plays out of certain personnel. So that's something we're working on. So get ready some automated reports out of WEPA. And then last but not least, email Morgan over at Blended Threads LLC, morgan@blendedthreadsllc.com. Shoot her an email if you're wanting to, like I said earlier, build those swag bags, get your sidelines looking good. Great prices on a lot of name brand stuff, and then she can also customize it for you before she ships it out. So go check out blendedthreadsllc.com. All right, Coach, I think that's it, man. Where are you at on social media?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So again, if you like the podcast, I've got 2 books, 10 mistakes I've made as a coach, and 0-10 to 10-0 that would fit into something you might enjoy. All over at fbcoachsimpson.com. Or you can go to fbcoachsimpson@gmail and hit me up and with whatever, and I'll get back with you. Or at fbcoachsimpson on Twitter.
Absolutely. I am at Coach Chambo OK on X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. All the other stuff is kind of taking a back seat as I do try to get into my first head coaching gig here. So as we get things going, hopefully I'll get back to the YouTubes and the Patreon and all that. If you guys are, if you need help, by all means, reach out, email me. We'll figure out how to make things work. We want to thank you for being a listener of the Coaching 101 podcast. We hope you'll join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.